back to Deal Oliver Live. Merry Christmas. I'm going to say that again because I like hearing myself say that. Merry Christmas. It is Christmas Eve. Tomorrow is Christmas Day, and it's a time to be celebrated all around the world. I'm joined now by Gavin Ashenden to talk about the significance of Christmas. Former priest of the Church of England, more recently converted to the Catholic faith. Good evening, Gavin. Merry Christmas to you.
Neil, Merry Christmas to you and to those who are sharing this moment with us.
Absolutely. It seems to me, Gavin, that it has never mattered more to celebrate Christmas, to keep Christmas, to mark the day. Would you agree?
I would. Something's happened in the last few decades, and certainly during the course of my lifetime, which has meant that the two things human beings need, meaning and hope, and perhaps compassion, that would be three, which reminds me of the Monty Python Inquisition joke. But anyway, three things that we need have disappeared, they've been sucked out of life, and they're all three things, meaning, hope, and compassion, that Christmas provides human beings with, and I think we need them today more than ever.
And Christmas, the heart of Christmas, the birth of the child is, I would say, is hope and optimism made manifest.
I think it is. Being a human being is quite difficult. Where do we come from? Where are we going to? How are we meant to navigate the struggle with good and evil and hope and hopelessness? If there's a God, we need him to make himself tangible. He needs to be available to people who are more than just the mystics, more than the intellectuals. He needs to be available to every human being. And breaking into time and space in human form is a very good way of doing it, and it's really worked quite well.
You mentioned light and dark and ideas of good and evil. So many people write to me, real letters that arrive in the mail about their anxiety and their fear about the present situation in the world, and a sense, more than anything else, that something somewhere is badly wrong, but that they have relied more and more on their faith to get them through. I can only imagine that you empathise with that feeling completely.
I do. I mean, looking back over history, being a human being is quite a precarious exercise. I think in the last few decades, there's been a sense that somehow we could rely on ourselves, modernity, progress, technology. We could protect ourselves to some extent. We've discovered that the protection doesn't work very well, and we need to look for different resources, resources that are less tangible, you might say more spiritual, more metaphysical. And these are what faith provides. They provide a way of interpreting what's happening to us as human beings. And our society has not been very good at it. We've not been very spiritually literate. We don't understand religious language. And one of the things that Christmas does is it reminds us again that the kind of language we need to work out how to be a human being is available to us. We've just got to, not got to do anything, but it's there for us to take and receive and use it if we want it.
Andrew Eborn, that idea that loss of that literacy, that the loss of the language, that inability or unwillingness to express, the thirst that from the soul doth rise and all of the rest of it. What do you make of that?
Well, it is interesting, and I think it's a very valid point. People at the moment, we need a sense of purpose in life, and I think without that sense of purpose, it's going to get very, very difficult. I always advocate about the power of artificial intelligence. They talk about taking over jobs and enhancing people's lives so people will have more leisure time. The question is this, though, they have more leisure time, what are they going to do with it? And I think that's the real issue. I'm very interested in your guest as well. He converted recently in your introduction, talked to Catholicism. I'll be fascinated if he's happy to share that, why he made that conversion, and whether that's changed his view of life.
Well, Gavin, how do you respond?
I'd be very happy to answer. Because I spent quite a lot of my life being quite prejudiced against Catholicism. There's quite a lot of disinformation out there, and also some bad history. When I simply discovered that what the Roman Catholic Church had taught was true, and one of the things that it's got in its repertoire, so to speak, is a lot of very holy people, an enormous amount of saintliness that has changed society wherever it's been. And then they invented the schools and the hospitals and the hospices and the universities. It all came out of Catholicism. The whole of Western culture did, really. And as there's a crisis now in Western culture, we're actually involved in destroying ourselves. There's an anti-life thing, anti-life in the womb, anti-life at euthanasia, anti-life as we allow our children to destruct their capacity for reproduction. So Catholicism, as I looked at it more carefully, as liberal Protestantism began to evaporate in front of my eyes, began, as I tested it, to be true. And I thought, I better grab it fast while there's any time left. And I'm very glad I did.
Have you been reassured then by the performance, if that's the right word, of leaders within the Catholic faith? Because I have looked on at faith leaders across the piece and been disappointed. You found it differently?
No, not at all. No, I think they behaved appallingly. The first thing I did was to read a history of bad popes so that I wouldn't be let down or disappointed. I think what has to distinguish between people who are the people who are running the organisation and the thing itself. The thing itself has an organic life in it, which goes on producing a holiness and transformed lives. The people who run it are sometimes good, they're sometimes bad. At the moment, I think they lack courage. And I'm afraid all the religious leaders appear to have drunk the Kool-Aid of secular society, perhaps to get approval, because I think they're frightened. But what today requires is courage of people who say they can see clearly. We certainly need leaders to help facilitate the organisation who've got courage and deep wells. We don't have enough of those at the moment, but the project itself has to do with Jesus. If the Catholic Church in particular was a human construct, it would have failed 10 times a century over the last 20 centuries. But it isn't a human construct, and Jesus has kept it alive, mainly through his own life, which he's shared with people who want to cooperate. We're tempted to try and use power to put things right, but power isn't the way forward. It's cooperation with compassion, with the God of compassion, and that's a kind of like it's a dance. It's a relationship. It's all to do with the baby. The baby grows up. We discover the baby is not just a baby, but a savior. Not just a savior, but the creator of the universe. And we start a dance with him. Not even an institutional church can crush that.
Do you feel hope this Christmas Eve, this day of all days? Is that hope still there for you?
It is, but my hope is directed in a particular way. My hope is directed partly in response to the people you said who are writing to you. Why are they a sign of hope? Because they've run out of patience with the status quo. They've run out of patience with the half lies and the lies of consumerism. They've run out of patience with all the soft untruths they've been told. And they want to know now how to live. It matters. Essentially, it's the old religious language of how am I saved? People ran up to Jesus all the way through the Gospels saying, how do I get out of this? How do I get beyond this? How do I manage this? And to everyone he came up to, he gave a particular answer that met their need, and as a type of us, meets our needs too. So for me, my hope is when I pick up the Gospels and I read them, and read the life of Jesus, I go, with him, this can be overcome. Anger can be healed, hatred can be forgiven, the cheek can be turned, violence can be subverted by love, despair is overcome by hope and compassion. Absolutely, there is hope, but it's all to do with him and not so much with us.
A perfect message of hope. Thank you so much, Gavin, and Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Thank you, and to you and to everyone listening. God bless you.
Here we are upon another break, after which I'll be joined by American author Laurel Gillen,